The following
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the United States Auto Association Mud Racing and Monster Truck National Tour. I'm Bret Kepner, and along with Jerry Devine, we'll be bringing you the action this time around from the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Arena in Oklahoma City. And Jerry, at this point, halfway through the season, the points races are getting pretty serious in Monster Truck and Mud Racing.
And talk about monster trucks, we got them tonight. Bigfoot, Barefoot, and many of the others. So monster truck qualifying coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Arena. It's time for a monster truck qualifying, Bret.
I'll tell you, Jerry, the very first truck up is Bigfoot, and that's unusual. These drivers draw lots to see who starts things off. It's our points leader, John Pyatt, in the big blue Ford from St. Louis, on what will prove to be an extremely interesting monster truck course.
Well, we'll get a chance to take a good look at that course in just a little bit, but let's watch Bigfoot with his qualifying run.
Against the clock, Bigfoot puts down the very first run of our 8-truck qualified field, and you can see on the slow motion replay just how difficult this course is going to be. The elapsed time, 3.76 seconds. It's an extremely short course with a very limited run at the cars. As a matter of fact, Jerry, if you just can keep it close to the ground and bounce maybe once, I think you'll be all right. This may turn into even a jumping contest. Nick Jackson and the Rocky Mountain Thunder Ford is in the near lane.
Up and over. You're right, Bret. Boy, this is short.
Well, the objective here is going to be to keep the truck as close to the ground as possible, and Jackson does that. There's no question that you can't get any power to the ground if all 4 wheels are in the air. At 3.85 seconds, that'll give him the number 2 spot behind Bigfoot. But here's a guy that may take advantage of the other way to do this, and that's hit the first jump as hard as you can and literally fly over the finish line.
Warren Davis. Whoa! Almost goes into the mud pit on this one.
Mud racers wouldn't like that. Have a monster truck going through the end before we start things off. The truck way in the air. That was probably the hardest shot we've seen at this track. And at 3.84 seconds, by 100th of a second, he'll knock Nick Jackson down to 3rd. Here's a guy we've seen all year long, Jerry.
That's right. Chuck Hawkins with Excalibur. He's a strong contender.
Seen this truck in the top 3 in the point standings now for the last 6 months. A lot of people seem to think this is the truck that's going to come through in the clutch. Now, Hawkins once again shows that if you keep it low to the ground, you're going to land about 15 feet before the finish line, and then it's time to reapply the throttle, get some extra power to get you across the finish line, although I think that may have been a little more conservative than even Hawkins wanted at 4.34 seconds.
Definitely a very important factor, keeping it low to the ground. This is weapon 1, Jerry Richmond. Whoa, look out! Oh, that was close, Bret.
I'll tell you what, that thing was definitely on 2 wheels. Now, you see, he goes at it full throttle. He was looking to land near the finish line. He nails the throttle once. When it hits, that's when it goes over, hits the mud berm. Look at this thing on 2 wheels, and in 3.72 seconds, that'll be good for the #1 spot.
All right, four-wheel crazy with Rob Morris from Fort Worth, Texas, coming up next. This is a screaming machine. On our last show, he had a little bit of trouble. Let's see how he does this time. Good run.
That was the first time we've seen anybody really get aggressive with this track. Morris was going to jump the entire course, literally. You can see the front wheels land about 5 feet before the finish line. He goes into a nosedive, but look at the elapsed time. Maybe horsepower is the way to do it. 340 for the #1 spot.
Rob Fuchs with First Blood coming up next, and this one is, he really likes to put the pedal down.
Man was voted Rookie of the Year last year in U.S. Hot Rod Association. And after watching Four-Wheel Crazy, he goes for the same technique, literally clearing the entire course after that first jump. Lots of air, 3.50 seconds. Jerry, that technique works. That's good for the #2 spot.
Rob Fuchs is very aggressive. Well, here's our ladder chart now, and this is how our qualifiers went.
That's right. This is the way they'll be pairing up in the first round of competition. Chuck Hawkins in the Excalibur Chevy is #7. Rocky Mountain Thunder and Nick Jackson's Ford is 6th. The Barefoot Team Machine, Warren Davis, who's doing so well in points, is 5th.
Bigfoot, #4. And then #3 will be Weapon 1.
Jerry Richmond's new Chevrolet looking real strong in this particular battle. First Blood, Rob Fuchs with a great qualifying run. He'll take on Barefoot in a Ford and Chevy battle in the first round. And the most aggressive driver in our qualifying session so far, the incredible four-wheel crazy Ford from Texas, leads with a bye run in the first round. But we've got more action coming up. Championship Mud Racing first round will be next. Don't even think about going away.
Stay with us.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we get ready for the first round of Super Modified Mud Racing. We're lucky enough to have the winningest mud racer of all time with us on the floor, Clay Langley. Clay, how do things look for your new ride for 1990?
Well, we've done a lot of changing here. We put new gear ratios in. We put new shocks and everything on it. You know, I think we've made it probably a half a second faster, you know, in the last 2 or 3 races. I figure in the next race or two, you know, we'll be right up there with the top dogs. And I appreciate a lot of help from Minsky Cam. They've helped me a lot in the last year or so.
Well, it looks like the new points fund this year has made things a lot more competitive.
It's helped, I think it's helped the sport a lot. You know, it's brought a lot of racers in. The money's real good, you know, and I think I figured by the end of the year, you know, it'd be a real big sport.
Who's that with you, Clay?
This is my son here. He's one of the future generation mud racers.
Well, thank you very much, Clay.
Okay. Thank you.
Quite a man, a winner of more mud titles than any other man since literally the early 1980s, and trying to come back as strong as he once was. But here, Jerry, is the man who dominated this event 1 year ago and is the hometown favorite.
Larry Jarrett with Locomotion. Keep in mind now, it's 80 feet to start and 80 feet to stop in mud bog racing.
We'll be qualifying the 4 quickest drivers for the shootout to determine the overall champion. Looks like we're ready.
Good run.
Now, interestingly enough, Jarrett shut the engine off well before the finish line, Jerry, and that has a lot to do with his fear of getting disqualified because of what you said. Only 80 feet of shutdown after this 80-foot track. Picture-perfect run on top of the mud, the supercharged Chevrolet engine working, but there you see the tires stop, and Jarrett already on the brakes trying to stop it. Look at the elapsed time. 1.91 seconds. Jerry, a new track record of the very first run.
He's going to have a tough time to beat that one. All right, chances are, driver is Bubba Clements.
All aluminum, supercharged Chevy-powered Jeep funny car is always tough out of the state of Texas, but what a mark to beat. 1.91 seconds stared him in the face already, Jerry.
Well, the best of the best are here tonight. Let's watch. Chances are.
A great run, no question about it. You saw the rear end of the machine fall down just a little bit off the starting line. This is a very, very tricky track. It's all clay, and as a matter of fact, as this event goes on, you'll see problems with ruts developing on the starting line, but Clements, drawing an early starting position, gets a beauty out of the way right at the start. The elapsed time, 2.20 seconds. A good run, but I think that goes to show you just how much Larry Jarrett knows this racetrack. This machine coming up has to be one of the most exquisitely engineered mud racers we have seen in a long, long time. This thing is awesome, Jerry.
It's a neat-looking machine, high anxiety, and it's driven by Keith Addison. Big wing over the machine on the back of the bed.
Really takes a lot from drag racing's train of thought. Supercharged big block Chevrolet engine, the tires tucked under the body panels. That's something we don't see too much in this sport. The extended wheelbase, the Chevy mini truck body. This thing is slick.
Eases it to the starting line, getting it ready to go. Keith Addison rolls into the timing lights. Look at the mud picked up by those exhaust headers.
I'll tell you, it is amazing the amount of exhaust pressure coming out of those exhausts. Look at this thing. Looks like a steam locomotive going through the finish line lights. The run not as good as he had hoped. There was a lot of tire spin, and it seems like with the tires up under the body panels, he may be experiencing some problems in getting the mud out of there. 2.36 seconds for the high-anxiety machine. Still a good run.
Okay, next up, a little roadster. This is Tim Richardson with the Warrior.
Once again, brand new machine that you can see a lot of drag racing influence in, pretty much of a four-wheel drive, AA fuel altered, as they call them in the sport. Supercharged big block Chevrolet, fiberglass 1923 T Ford roadster body. It's a neat little car, brand new entry.
Rolls it to the line, here we go. Oh, and he lost the fire.
Something goes wrong, and I'll tell you, I didn't see any explosion or anything else on the slow motion replay here. The machine actually comes up on the mud pretty well, but then it just seems to lose power. I wouldn't be surprised, Jerry, if that was an electrical problem, coil wire just cutting the engine.
I would say it certainly looked like that kind of thing because it went so fast.
Speaking of so fast, here is the current U.S. Hobart Association 80-foot track record holder at 1.76 seconds. This thing flies, Jerry.
This is the American Made, driven by Jim Weber.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin veteran has managed to hold a position in the top 5 of the point standings now for a solid 6 months.
Sounds real healthy. Let's watch him. Ho-ho! And he gets it stopped.
Boy, just barely. That thing was sliding. Again, this clay is so slippery when it gets wet. Look at Weber's supercharged Chevy up on top of the mud. The front end just grazing that pit. In fact, airborne at about the finish line. Now watch him lock those brakes up. All 4 wheels locked. The driver trying to slide the car sideways if he has to stay within bounds. A great, great run. 1.96 seconds. And indeed, Weber threatens Larry Jarrett. Tremendous run. And we've now got 4 cars qualified for the shootout, but we've got more in the first round coming up. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the United States Hot Rod Association Mud Racing Championships. Brought to you in part by Kicker High Performance Automotive Speakers by Stillwater Designs. Well, Bret, wait till you see what we got coming up next. It's time for a funny car.
This is such a neat vehicle. Drag racing fans out there will remember this car as the 1987 IHRA World Nitro Funny Car Champ. It's been converted to 4-wheel drive mud racing. This is Michigan's Mark Watrous, the Michigan Off-Road Center Ford-powered Thunderbird.
Keep your eyes on this one. It screams through the mud racing area. Now watch him. Watch him now. Mark Watrous with that funny car.
Tell you, Watrous actually a little bit lackadaisical about getting on the brakes down there. That was kind of risky. Machine never seemed to get up on top of the mud until about the 30-foot mark. There you see the nose come up. Now, for the rest of the lap, the car was still sinking the right rear tire into the mud pretty solidly. That's where most of the torque was coming from, but it never really got the starting line launch it needed to put down a 1 second elapsed time to keep pace with the leaders. He had to go quicker than 2.36 seconds to get into the quick four, and he does it by 0.06 of a second, Jerry. 2.30 seconds. That'll put him on the bump spot right now.
All right, coming up next, it's going to be the Mud Special. Perry Hicks doing the driving.
This is the way mud racing was quite a while ago. The high center of gravity Jeeps with an extended wheelbase, carbureted Chevy motor underneath the hood. This thing actually runs pretty good. I'm almost concerned about Hicks getting underneath that finish line banner with this thing as high in the air as it is.
Body style sure have changed. He has a tough time, but he powers his way through.
That's the idea. When you don't have enough horsepower to get right up on the mud immediately, boy, it's going to be a chore getting down to the finish line. Perry Hicks, through sheer determination, makes it. I'll tell you, it looks like he's going to hit the banner there. Sure enough, he ducks his head, and the exhaust pressure from the headers blows it up over him. 3.82 seconds, though, for Hicks. Won't be good enough to get into the quick four shootout. And here's the old man.
The Nitro Express, Clay Langley.
Missouri campaigner with, of all things, a small block Chevrolet engine with an Austin Bantam Roadster body. It's a unique combination, though.
Might add, Bret, he is not running nitro, he's running alcohol.
That's true. It is an alcohol-burning machine. Still about 10,000 RPM.
And he gets it stopped. Boy, could you see those tires swell.
I'll tell you what, once he got the tire speed up, the machine just didn't have enough traction to keep going. If you look at the starting line area, you'll see how sloppy it's getting, and that's the clay that we've been talking about that is affecting the way these cars launch. Every track in the country, Jerry, is different. You know that better than anybody. Whatever the type of dirt is in the area, that's what they have to race on, and that changes week to week.
That's correct. And you know, when this mud gets wet, it gets almost like a suction. It gets real sticky.
That's true, and it takes even more power to get through it. Langley's 2.89 second won't help him.
All right, coming up next will be Gordon Chessie, and he's here with Point Blank. Little pickup truck. Ready to go. Look at the exhaust stacks. He's got them way up in the air. He's going to make sure that nothing happens to them, nothing gets in them. Good run.
It actually was, considering that, again, the machine did not get the traction off the starting line that it needed, and I doubt if that'll be good enough to run quicker than 2.30 seconds to get into the quick four. Looking on the left side exhaust area, there was a few misses off the starting line as well. Maybe the engine not running quite up to par. He finally got it up on top of the mud. By that time, he was almost out of distance, so Chessie never really had a chance at getting into that quick four program. 3.27 seconds, though. For a brand new ride, not bad at all.
You got a little bit crossed up going through the mud there. All right, our next racer coming up. Just passing through.
Rick Brickeye has run this fuel-injected Jeep funny car quite a few events in the U.S. Auto Association National Event Tour this year. When conditions are right, when he gets it hooked up, this thing can run with the best.
Good run. Let's check the time.
That's kind of interesting. I almost think that Brickeye may have gone out there and left the starting line easy so he didn't spin this tire so hard, but then he ran into the problem of not having enough power to get through the pit anywhere near quick enough to be a part of that four-car shootout that will determine the winner. Also heading over towards the right-hand side berm there, he did some steering down near the finish line area. He had to go quicker than 2.30 seconds to get into the quick four. And there you see fire out of the injector down at the finish line. He actually had a backfire on that run, something we didn't see earlier, but 2.74 seconds won't help Brickeye. That means that our four qualifiers in the Grand Slam shootout, of course, Larry Jarrett in the Locomotion, the hometown hitter at 1.91 seconds. Jim Weber, the record holder, at 1.96. Bubba Clements, the Texas racer, at 2.20 seconds, and chances are, and then the Ford-powered Thunderbird of Mark Watros at 2.30 seconds. Jerry, those are the four cars that will be battling it out for the championship. But we've still got Monster Truck's first round to go yet.
And that is something else. So stay with us for the first round of Monster Trucks coming up.
We're back at the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Arena in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. We've completed qualifying for both the super modified mud racers and for the monster trucks. I'm Bret Kepner along with Jerry Devine. Jerry, we're ready for the first battle in this monster truck war.
That's right. It looks like we've got a single run. Rob Morris with four-wheel crazy coming up to the line.
That's right. Because of breakage during qualifying, Morris, as the low qualifier, gets to set the pace. He ran 3.40 seconds in his qualifying run. Let's see what the Ford can do.
Driver from Fort Worth, Texas. And a decent run. Didn't take it real easy on it.
It was harder than I really anticipated. He's still being conservative. Obviously, with nobody in the other lane, he doesn't have to worry about winning the match. But remember, the quicker of each pair of vehicles gets lane choice for the next round. So Morris was concerned about that, and it looks like he probably did the job.
All right, next pair roll to the starting line. This is first round of eliminations in the monster trucks.
The brand new Weapon 1 Chevrolet of Jerry Richmond, an ex-barefoot team driver, was extremely impressive in qualifying for a brand new ride, and this driver is not afraid to take chances, Jerry. He's one of the wilder guys out there.
Well, he'll be going against the Rocky Mountain Thunder with Nick Jackson behind the controls.
Jackson's Ford's been a consistent qualifier this year.
Weapon 1 takes the win.
That's true. The Chevrolet left about dead even with the Ford off the starting line. Here you see Nick Jackson trying to keep pace, but at this point, he was already watching the Chevrolet in the other lane drive away. Kind of a rough landing there for the Colorado Ford pilot as well. But Richmond, remember in qualifying, was doing his best to be aggressive. Here he lands literally on the last car and just takes a bounce over the finish line. We saw two completely different ways of handling this very short, very tricky race course, Jerry. There was one way of a sheer aggressiveness in which you literally leap to the finish line using all your power in the first 30 feet. The other way was to land once and then nail the throttle. It'll be interesting in this match between two of the toughest points drivers in the business to see which technique they use.
John Pyan with Bigfoot coming up in the lane closest to us. John will be facing Excalibur, Chuck Hawkins.
Remember that Hawkins had problems during qualifying. He was only number 7 in this program. Bigfoot used a very conservative approach as the very first qualifier out, but you can bet both these drivers are going to turn extremely aggressive on this match. This is a do-or-die situation from a point standpoint.
Well, the fans here are cheering on their favorite. Looks like both drivers are ready to go. Let's watch it. Excalibur! Look out! Look out! Oh, that was close!
I'll tell you what, had it not been for a hole shot by the Chevy driver, I think the outcome would have been different. You talk aggressive. Look at the air that points leader John Pyan got, literally landing almost right on the finish line. But you could see in the other lane, the Chevy driver was a half truck out in front, and that was all because of starting line reactions. Hawkins got the hole shot, extremely aggressive, way, way, way up in the air, landing past the finish line, Jerry. Look at this bounce up on 2 wheels. Look at Hawkins in the cockpit being thrown all over inside there, trying to keep this thing straight as it goes into the mud berm. Man, aggressive does not even begin to describe that battle.
All right, here comes Warren Davis now with Barefoot. You talk about aggressive. This driver right here is very aggressive.
That's very true. We've seen him do extremely well on our ESPN coverage of U.S. Hobbit Association events this year. And you can bet that Davis right now knows that Bigfoot, the points leader, has been knocked out in the first round. That opens the door for everybody else in this program to make up a lot of ground on the blue Ford.
And Rob Fuchs with First Blood. He's from Woodstock, Illinois. This driver also is very aggressive.
He proved that in qualifying. Like I said before, named 1989 Rookie of the Year in Monster Truck Competition in U.S. Hobbit Association Racing. And it's important to remember also, Jerry, you know this better than anybody, that Rob Fuchs built that truck himself. That's not a store-bought piece.
Ford against Chevrolet, so we've got an interesting battle right there. Rob Fuchs going against Warren Davis, First Blood, and Barefoot. Takes the win.
on the brakes hard. I cannot believe on a course this short that Barefoot could come from behind to win. The First Blood Ford driver, Rob Fuchs, left the starting line first. Even at this point, he's behind. Now look at that, by about a foot and a half at the finish line. Barefoot comes around after such a huge starting line deficit. Here's Warren Davis. He leaves the starting line second, gets a lot of air after that aggressive launch. He lands right at the finish line, and at that point literally was sailing through the air faster than the Ford driver, Jerry.
Unbelievable. Yeah, a great race between these two monster trucks.
I just can't believe we saw somebody come from behind on a course this short. It just goes to show you the monster trucks on the U.S. Opera Association Tour will put on a show no matter what the circumstances. So that means in the next round it'll be the four-wheel crazy of Rob Morris against Weapon One, a Ford versus Chevy match, and Chevy versus Chevy with Excalibur and Barefoot in a points battle. And I'll tell you what, this war is going to get pretty serious. And I'll tell you, right now it almost looks like each one of these drivers is about dead even in this matchup, Jerry.
It certainly does, Bret, and we've got lots more racing action yet coming up. You know, the same monster truck action that we're seeing here tonight, you'll be able to see when a U.S. Hot Rod Association event comes to a stadium arena near you real soon. Now, you can learn how to attend that event by sending in a postcard, Bret.
That's right, Jerry. Each and every one of our viewers on ESPN's coverage of U.S. Hot Rod Association Mud Racing and Monster Truck Championship events can become a part of the U.S. Hot Rod Association simply by sending a postcard to the address you see on your screen, 477 East Butterfield Road, Department ESPN, Lombard, Illinois. The zip code there, 60148. It's absolutely free of charge. Just address it to the United States Hot Rod Association Mud Racing and Monster Truck Championship Tour, and we'll forward you all the information you need to know to become a part of the U.S. Hot Rod Association, and we'll make you an associate member for absolutely nothing.
The exciting semifinals coming up, so stay with us. Welcome back to the U.S. Hot Rod Association Monster Truck Racing Championships. Semi-final round, Bret.
A packed house looking on here at the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Arena in Oklahoma City, and this matchup will pit one of the newest Chevrolets against this man. We've already seen him win before on ESPN this year. This is Rob Morris, the four-wheel crazy Ford that was #1 qualifier. Jerry, we saw him take a solo run in the first round that was on the edge of conservatism, but you don't have to worry about that in this round.
Well, he'll be facing Weapon One, Jerry Richmond. And it looks like Jerry Richmond is ready to go and take on Rob Morris.
You know, we talked about Richmond being an ex-Barefoot team driver, and when you drive for the Barefoot team, you are not conservative. Simple as that. You do everything you possibly can to win all the time. Richmond wants to drop the #1 qualifier. He is not rated high in the points at this particular part of the season, but obviously a defeat of Rob Morris could make a big change there.
This ought to be a good one. The winner of this one now will go into the final round. Both drivers making sure that they're lined up just right. Richmond eases it to the line. Looks like we're about ready to go. And it's Rob Morris, four-wheel crazy, taking the win.
I'll tell you, Jerry Richmond did everything he could. Boy, the Ford fans loved that one, didn't they? I don't believe it. People on their feet all the way around. They want that Texas boy to win. Indeed, a great starting line launch by Morris. He got the whole shot and then extended the lead from there. And like I said, no conservatism here whatsoever. Landing on the last car, one quick bounce. I know that he had to hit the throttle just a little bit there, Jerry, because of that nosedive. He wasn't going to give it to the Chevy.
Takes the win by about a half a length.
Now, Richmond got big-time airborne, landed about the finish line, but then he hit that berm again. Here the truck goes sideways. Watch Richmond in the driver's seat. Man, literally under the dashboard. He really got thrown around in there, Jerry.
These drivers really do get thrown around inside these trucks. All right, it's going to be Chuck Palkins now with Excalibur going against Warren Davis and Barefoot.
Barefoot again, driver and truck that we have seen do extremely well on our ESPN coverage this year. That's why he's been in the top 4 point standings since the very beginning of the season. In fact, one of the very first races at Seattle featured this man in the final round. Now, Chuck Palkins, like I said, with his Ohio-based Excalibur Chevy, is extremely good off the starting line. And if he can get a hole shot with his reactions like he did in the first round, I doubt if we're going to see a come-from-behind race like we saw last time. If the Excalibur machine can get out in front, he'll be fine. Now, we call this guy Psycho, Jerry, for a reason. Chuck Hawkins is nuts. He'll do anything it takes to win.
Well, the winner of these two trucks now will face Rob Morris in the final.
Guaranteed a Ford and Chevy finale. The starting line staging steward on the starting line tells the drivers they are lined up and then directs their attention to the starting lights, which are located past the finish line. The drivers look straight ahead all the time.
Hawkins takes it with an easy run.
And again, it was all on reactions off the starting line. Now you see Hawkins leave the starting line with a huge hole shot. It didn't matter what Warren Davis did. With starting line reactions like that, you're never going to get around that driver. Hawkins makes it to the final round strictly on his driving ability. Had nothing whatsoever to do with horsepower. Look at the barefoot machine in the other lane. Extremely aggressive landing on the very edge of the last car. Nose diving it a little bit, but you know that Warren Davis looked over and saw that he was a loser. So that means that it will be a Ford and Chevrolet final round again, Jerry. It seems like it always works out, brand versus brand.
Certainly does. Four-wheel crazy and Excalibur. The finals of the monster trucks coming up, and that's going to be a dandy.
No question. Look who Chuck Hawkins had to beat to get to this final round. In the first round of competition, he defeats Bigfoot, the points leader. In the second round, sheer driving reactions. Not the horsepower, but the driver won the race over Barefoot. And now he has a chance to really make a difference in the points with the four-wheel crazy Ford, which we already know can get across this track quicker than anybody. He was #1 qualifier.
Well, these trucks, no doubt, have proven themselves as champions. Look who they've had a race against tonight.
It's been pretty incredible. We still have, of course, the Grand Slam shootout for the 4 quickest mud racing vehicles, led by a 1.91 second track record by hometown hero Larry Jarrett. That will be about.
Don't you dare leave us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and it's time, Bret, for the finals.
This will be the Grand Slam shootout program. The 4 quickest mud racing qualifiers will be battling it out for the overall championship. And like we pointed out earlier, Jerry, we've got a chance to see Chevy, Ford, just about everything possible in this particular shootout. Larry Jarrett's incredible sprint car is the first man up since he was the first man to run in the first round of the 4 final qualifiers. And you know he is going to put down a number that will be tough to beat. Track record, 1.91 second run in the first round. Chevy power in this thing from Perry, Oklahoma. This is the one the crowd is cheering for.
Well, he's trying to bring it up to the starting line. He wants to bring it up just right. He wants to roll it just into the lights.
And you can see just how slippery and sloppy that starting line is getting as the ground crew hooks up that kill switch. And that's a major part of the safety of these events, Jerry.
It certainly is. 80 feet to start, 80 feet to stop. Rules still remain the same. This is locomotion, Larry Jarrett. Eases it up ever so slowly, right up to the starting line. Here we go. Larry Jarrett.
Oh, man, so close to going out of bounds down there. Locked up all 4 wheels. Amazingly, even with the track conditions the way they were, the car gets right up on the mud. He really worked in the cockpit steering this thing. He shut it off just a bit before the finish line. Look at the elapsed time. Another new track ET record, 1.89 seconds.
Unbelievable this late in the game for the track being of that condition to turn in that kind of a time. Well, here's chances are Bubba Clements doing the driving.
Boy, look at that starting line. Clements, you can see, inching forward to where the tires are inside that light source, the electronic photocell that starts the clocks. And he is not happy with the way he lined that up. You can see how soupy the starting line is getting. It's literally filling in the ruts now, and it almost looks like a mud lake. Now, when he moves up, you'll see the starting line steward with the green flag. He'll wave the flag to tell him to look at the Christmas tree. Count down the starting line lights. When the green light's on, he'll be ready.
Bubba Clements, chances are, here we go. Hold it, hold it, hold it.
He stops it in time, and that's the name of the game. He had to go quicker than 1.89 seconds. He had to basically run a new track record to get the #1 spot away from Larry Jarrett, but you can see the tire spin. Look at the mud behind that thing. The front end was up out of the pit perfectly. It was the rear tires that were spinning and taking most of the brunt there. 2.24 seconds. It won't be good enough.
All right, that leaves 2 more to go. American made. This is Jim Weber coming up to the line now. 1.89, time to beat.
Well, this is the guy we saw go 1.96 in the first round of qualifying. The only other driver under 2 seconds flat in this 80-foot long pit. And remember, this is the guy that holds the official 80-foot U.S. Hybrid Association record at 1.76 seconds. So he's got the power with this Chevy-powered Milwaukee-based entry.
All right, he eases it to the line. Let's watch him. Waits for the tip. Wow!
That was a pretty run, no question about it. And the top end is so slippery that even with all 4 wheels locked up, you only can hang on and wait to see if you're going to stay in bounds. You can see that soup off the starting line. Trying to get traction in that is like trying to hook up on a frozen lake. He stays in the throttle till right at the finish line, shuts it down perfectly. All 4 wheels locked up. Another 1.96 second run. An incredible effort under these conditions, but just misses the #1 spot.
But here comes our final one, the Michigan Off-Road.
Well, the first 3 vehicles use Chevy power. Now it's one for the Fords. This is a big one, too. 557 cubic inches of supercharged Ford motor in a Ford Thunderbird funny car. As we pointed out, as a past world champion in drag racing.
Mark Waitrose, Ford Thunderbird body. Off the line, Bret.
Too much tire spin. The starting line, you're not going to be able to use horsepower here. You're going to have to use brains as well. Almost an explosion of mud off the starting line because of the tire spin. You can see those tires distorting because of the speed at which they are spinning and not hooking up a bit. Waitrose drove at full throttle, but the elapsed time won't be anywhere near good enough. The time, 2.34 seconds.
Tremendous racing in the mud racing division. Well, what do we have here?
Well, Jerry, this is something you can see at almost every one of the U.S. Hybrid Association mud races, and it's wild.
It's Dash for Cash, and this is usually a radio station promotion, and it is a lot of fun. This is just part of coming to a U.S. Hot Rod Association event.
Well, when we come back, you'll see what a Dash for Cash is all about. Stay with us. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Arena in Oklahoma City. We've still got the Monster Truck Championship Dash to go. But before we get into that, Jerry, we've got something on tap that we can see at just about any U.S. Hybrid Association event. It's pretty outrageous.
Dash for Cash, and it's a lot of fun.
The objective is to blindfold participants and send them into the mud pit chasing beach balls that are marked individually for different prices. Now, this just isn't a $10 or $15 deal. You can win up to $1,000 cash. We've seen people win brand new Ford trucks in this competition, Jerry.
The competition is real keen, and it's tough.
There's no question the people that get involved with it are deadly serious about picking a prize, getting one of those beach balls. When you're blindfolded, you can't even see where the balls are. Sometimes we allow coaches to stand on the sidelines and yell to the contestants which way to turn, where the ball is closest to them. It gets pretty wild, no question about it. And as you can see, it's not the cleanest sport in the world. But something else you get a chance to see at this particular edition of U.S. Hybrid Association Racing is the fact that at every one of the U.S. Hybrid Association events, something wild inevitably happens. And our producer, Steve Cannon, and the rest of the crew put together probably the best of the worst of U.S. Hybrid Association Dash for Cashes for hard, cold cash. say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I don't even know the words to go with those pictures. We've still got a lot of action to come, including, of course, the Monster Truck Championship. Stay with us.
It's time for the Monster Truck Finals, Bret.
I'll tell you what, Ford versus Chevrolet, but more interestingly, the #1 qualifier against the #7 qualifier. Seldom do you see a driver who finished so far down in qualifying make it this far, but this young man, the psycho himself, Chuck Hawkins, has done some incredible things tonight with the Excalibur Chevy.
Well, that's for sure, but his competition, Rob Morris from Fort Worth, Texas, is certainly no slouch. He has got a lot of competition coming up.
One thing you have to remember is that this is Morris's first year in competition. He's been amazing in his rookie season.
He certainly has. We saw him first in Anaheim, and here we are now in Oklahoma, and he's still growing strong.
It's true. We saw him win that very first race, and it was an upset then. Now he goes into this final round only 6 months later as the serious favorite, and Chuck Hawkins in the Excalibur Chevy is going to be the underdog in this one. But I'll tell you, if Hawkins can leave the starting line as quickly as he has so far in this event, that Ford driver is going to be in trouble. He's going to need every bit of power.
Well, the crowd here in the arena is coming to life, and they are ready for this final.
I'll tell you, the people have already picked their favorites. They know who they want to win.
Those of you at home, pick out the one you think is going to win. Here we go.
The signal goes out to fire up each one of the 1,200 horsepower engines, and now it's serious business. The point standings at this point favor the blue Ford from Texas. Hawkins in the Excalibur Chevrolet has a chance now that Bigfoot is taken out by him in the very first round to make a big difference here.
Chevrolet against Ford. Here we go. Chevy is closest to us. Ford in the far lane. The Chevy wins!
Absolutely incredible driving. He gets the whole shot again, but this time he came up with a lot more power than people thought he had, Jerry. Look at this, backing onto the cars. I know Chuck Hawkins, and he'll get out of that thing and give the crowd a victory salute, and you'll be able to hear their appreciation.
Super racing.
Unbelievable job. You can see all the safety equipment, the girdle, the neck brace, the helmet, the fire suit, every bit of it part of the U.S. Hobbit Association safety rules, but this crowd cannot believe that the Chevrolet pulled it off from the #7 qualifying position.
There he is. There's your winner. Chuck Hawkins, and the fans love it.
I just can't believe that he used the starting line advantages one more time in the final round. This man's reactions are simply incredible. He leaves the line, but watch this. Full power all the way up the ramp on the first car. Look at the height this thing achieves, a truck length advantage. He lands 10 feet past the finish line. Look at this landing, completely crazy. That's why the crowd were on their feet.
Chuck Hawkins doing a great job. Well, here's Rob Morris now.
I'll tell you, as much as he had done so far at this event, low qualifier, the quickest time in every round, you got to admit that it looked like the Ford pilot had a serious advantage against the Chevrolet. He, too, used the same pretty much technique he had used throughout the event, landing on the last car and applying throttle at one last point before crossing the finish line. But he was an honest truck length behind on a short course. That's a bunch.
Well, Chuck Hawkins takes the win with Excalibur, and we're going to get him over here so we can talk to him a little bit. And I see that the camera crew has got him down on the floor right now. Chuck Hawkins, great night of racing. Chuck, have you done anything recently to change the truck? It runs really great tonight.
Yes, I did. I ended up changing the gearing in the transfer case to enable me to use more gears, is what it comes down to. It makes the truck faster on a shorter course.
Well, you had to be especially thrilled with the first round against that big blue Ford. That was a big deal.
Yeah, it's a real ego boost when you beat Bigfoot, and that's what we're out here to do, is put on a good show for the Chevy fans.
Well, that's exactly what you did. The new points fund this year has to be a major concern. You've managed to stay in the top 3 all year.
It's a great goal for what they've given us. You know, it's a big goal to strive for. It's nice that someone's finally stepped in and given us a points fund to run for. It just makes us want to come out and do the very best we can.
Well, congratulations, Chuck, on a great night of racing.
All right, thank you. I'd like to thank all my sponsors that helped me come here. Thanks.
Pretty incredible young man.
Unbelievable night of racing.
That's for sure, and this will probably change the point standing substantially as well. With Pawkins moving up, I would think that it probably made a difference with some of the other competitors that were here tonight. In the number 10 position, Ray Perkowski out of St. Louis with the Evil Force Ford. Number 9 is Jeff Baintner in the High Voltage Jeep, one of the wild men of the tour. In the 8th position, the Chevrolet AM/PM Rocket of Dale Boucher, but the big changes came in the number 6 and number 7 spots, where Rob Morris and Warren Davis in the Ford and Chevrolet entries respectively got knocked down a notch, and the sole reason that they dropped to 6th and 7th was because of the performance of Chuck Pawkins in the Excalibur Chevrolet here tonight. In fact, the reason Pawkins has moved into 5th is because by defeating Morris in the final round, he gained enough of a points advantage, the two were so close, that he has now slid in just by a few points into the number 5 spot.
Competition is keen from 6 to 10, but let's look at the top 5 now.
Well, right now, Pawkins is currently 5th at 678 points, and he does have a way to go to pick up any distance on Jim Reese in the Ecology Eliminator, which is 4th.
That's right. Number 3 will be Rob Fuchs from Woodstock, Illinois, with First Blood. Then comes Jack Willman, who holds down the number 2 spot from Granite City, Illinois. And still number 1, that big blue Ford from St. Louis, Bigfoot, with 1,259 points.
It's amazing, considering the fact that Bigfoot has lost in the first round here tonight, that he can still hold on to that lead. But sooner or later, we're going to see more of these Bigfoot versus Taurus shootouts. Rob Fuchs, last year's Rookie of the Year, has moved into an extremely strong position in number 3. He could actually affect the outcome of this with 6 more months left to go on the U.S. Hybrid Association schedule. Now, in the super modified mud racing point standings, there haven't been too many changes all year long. In the 10th spot, the old man of mud racing, Clay Langley from Independence, Missouri, has the Nitro Express moved up into the top 10 for the first time this season after a dismal start to 1990. In the 9th spot, Chad Miller's Instant T from Ohio, which we saw go end over end at our last event in Tampa, Florida, has still managed to hold on to 9th after repairing that vehicle. Then the Blue Max out of Ohio, 8th. The Bad Habit of Byron Tinky out of Iowa is 7th, and Ron Smith's Michigan-based Gold Fever is in the number 6 spot. But no one, absolutely no one, has been able to touch the man who has still led this mud racing series for the 3rd straight year since the very first weekend of this season. That, of course, is Tom Martin in the Mud Patrol. Right now, Melvin Brown's other machine, he also owns the Blue Max, his other machine, Red Heat, is number 5. The Stumpy's T entry of Jody Kelly out of Georgia is 4th. Jim Weber's performance here tonight made the only significant change in the mud racing standings. His American-made entry is now 3rd, with the Ford-powered entry of the Ward family from Pennsylvania, the Mystic Warrior 2nd, and Tom Martin leading by a ton in the Mud Patrol. And, Jerry, you got to admit, after 2 straight world championships, Tom Martin looks like he's going to lead this thing again for a 3rd straight year.
Well, it sure does, but Tom Martin wouldn't be where he is today if it wasn't for one thing called consistency.
That's very true. Even though he was the first man under 2 seconds flat, his consistency at the beginning of any season seems to make the difference between what he does for the rest of the year. We haven't seen Tom Martin dominate nearly as much as we have in years past, but the first couple of finishes at the beginning of the season were what made a big, big difference in his point standings right now. And really the same goes for Bigfoot. Although they won a bunch of races at the beginning of the season, right now they're basing their strength on the semifinal finishes that they've managed to come up with, and that kind of consistency is what's keeping them in the lead, albeit by a small margin.
That's true, but monster truck racing, as we've seen tonight, is relatively a new sport, and these other drivers are learning how to play the game.
That's very true, and that's why we're seeing that kind of battle intensify the way it has. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the season if we started seeing some showdowns that really made the difference between winning or losing a world championship. In any case, it's been an incredible event here in Oklahoma City. Next time around, we'll be visiting you all the way from Orlando, Florida. Brand new event with a brand new building. On behalf of myself, Bret Kepner, and Jerry Devine,